Welcome to another episode of Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. Today, Kevin and Sean dive into a topic every sales pro needs to master: identifying and targeting the right prospects. They reveal powerful tools like LinkedIn Sales Navigator and AI-driven insights from Perplexity to streamline your prospecting and make every outreach count. Plus, you'll learn practical strategies for understanding a prospect's internal goals and motivations, turning you from just another vendor into a trusted partner. Stick around to discover how to build a prospect list that truly drives results and positions you to solve real problems for your clients.
Welcome back to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. This is Sean. You know, Kevin, this is fall. I love fall. I love the weather in the fall. I love the trees. I think it's a great time of year. Not to say I don't love summer and spring, and as I think you know, I despise winter. But I love going outside in the fall. I like watching the leaves, watching everything that's going on. And you know, one thing I've noticed though is that when I'm walking around, I don't know the difference between one kind of leaf and another kind of leaf, one kind of tree and another kind of tree. A tree is just a piece of wood until you cut it up and you slice it and you make it into a piece of furniture. Then I can say, oh, that's maple or that's ash or whatever. And I think that's how a lot of salespeople are as well. They're wandering around. They see all these companies. And last week we talked about big territories and being able to call on the whole United States. And I think salespeople still struggle with, how do I know this is a company I should call on? Just like I can't tell the difference between one type of wood or another, one type of leaf for another. I don't think salespeople can tell the difference between what is a good customer, what is an ideal client profile customer, and what isn't. So do we have any hints maybe that we can share with our salespeople out there, with our sales leaders out there that have to share with their salespeople about how do you find that really good customer? How do you find that customer that, like we talked last week, that is just like my top 10 best favorite customers? And if you didn't listen to last week's episode, stop right now, just hit pause, go back an episode, listen to that one. We'll wait for you. Just wait a second. Okay, now you're back. Okay, now let's go ahead and Kevin, what do you think? Can we help them find customers?
Yes. So the sales behavior here is developing your prospect list. I want to pause on that. We're developing a prospect list. It's not how many companies are within 5 miles of my business. It's not that. This is an ideal prospect list that you as a sales leader or salesperson are either building to go out and acquire yourself or to assign out to people. Sean, you and I have worked in companies where you have a prospect list, a target account list, and if you've been on the enterprise side, you've had a strategic account list. These can be really big whales, and they can be inside of someone else's territory, but they're strategic for the entire enterprise. But for the purposes of today, I want to keep that vein of talking about smaller sales teams, less than 5 people on the sales team, and how to build an effective list. Now, if you met Sean and I at a networking event, we would talk about activating your network, looking for referrals, deciding who else is talking to my customer or prospect now that could introduce me, who has a good relationship, what do they really need, what is the political, environmental, legal, technological things influencing this company so that we can develop a one-to-one marketing strategy, highly customized marketing strategy. But there's other tools. We all have probably by this time heard of LinkedIn. And there's AI tools and add-ins that Sean and I both kind of evangelize for because we like them and use them ourselves. Because remember, we fall in that same company size as the single or less than 5 sellers. Sean and I use a tool called Sales Navigator. We use LinkedIn searches. If you've never spent any time looking for companies, if you've only spent time looking for people on LinkedIn, take a minute, just do a little bit of self-education or self-rescue if you've never done it before. Log into your LinkedIn account. Search for new sales expert or lighthouse sales advisors, and in your search, select companies, and it will suggest to you other companies just like Sean and I's company. Now, is that what we want you to do? No, we want you to click on our site. Click on our site. But in reality, when we're trying to find more information about similar companies, that's how you do it. You can do the same thing in Sales Navigator. You can filter them by number of engineers or titles of people or tenure. All these kinds of filters exist so you as a seller can do more research. Now, that's one way. Sean and I spend a lot of calories, and we share with most of our customers. We use a tool called KnowledgeNet. Why do we do that? Lots of similar reasons. And it will also automate the search for other companies that fit very much like those companies you've looked up. So if you find your top 10 most favorite, best to deal with, most profitable, best relationships, most referable customers in your existing customer list, you can go use a tool like KnowledgeNet to say, search for that company and scroll down a little bit on their page, their user interface, and say, find similar companies. Oh, wow. Okay, now I've got a similar companies list. They may not be an 80, 90% match, but they're a good match to start with. So then what do you do? Well, shucks, who do I work with and like to work with at my ideal client profile company? What's their title? Back to the KnowledgeNet tool and say, hey, find contacts, which is a feature. Go find contacts at this company that match this profile, that are executive level or divisional or discipline level. Find their geography, because if you have 1,000 logistics and distribution managers or engineering managers or production managers because they've got 1,000 different plants, find the one that's closest to you. Find a 3-state region around you. What we're saying here, what I'm saying here, and probably not so eloquently, but intentionally, is that to build a good customer list, it doesn't have to be going to Google and searching hundreds of pages and hours and days of your time to build a good prospect list that you may or may not get in touch with. We're trying to show you through the through the course of this discussion that there are some tips and tricks you can use today before lunch with a simple subscription to be more effective at your job.
And then once you start to understand what that person is like, what that company is like, let's think about, what do we do next? Let's think about, how do we find out information about that company? Well, obviously, there's going to be information on their website. There's going to be information on a variety of tools and whatever. There's going to be on LinkedIn. There's going to be some information. You need to start compiling that information. And I don't want to go into a big pitch about artificial intelligence, but let's be honest, AI can be your friend. So you take information about the company, you take information about the people that you can find at that company, and you start doing artificial intelligence analysis of the company. And I suggest you go to a tool like Perplexity. You can use Perplexity for free. It's a question and answer. It goes and searches the internet for you. And you can say, I want to find more information about Kevin Lawson. In fact, do it right now, right? Take a little pause. Don't do this if you're driving. But if you're at home or if you're at your office and you're listening to this podcast, type Kevin Lawson into Perplexity and find out more information about Kevin. Kevin, as you know, is the other Too Tall Guy. Hopefully that'll be one of the first things that you find, is he's on Too Tall Guys Talking Sales. But start searching more information about these people. Build an analysis about the people and the companies that you want to call on or that you think might be interesting, because you're trying to figure out, what are their goals. I think Kevin said last week, and once again, if you haven't listened to last week's episode, you really should. But Kevin said last week, how do they get bonused? How do they earn their bonus in their job? How do they earn their extra income in their job? How do they get acclaimed, whatever the case may be? Well, start searching for that. Start searching about how that director of engineering passed this class or took this certification class or whatever. You'll get some hints on that on LinkedIn. But you'll get more hints on that when you start using some good internet search tools like Perplexity or like KnowledgeNet about other accreditations that person might have. So once you understand who your existing customers are and who your prospects are, you really need to understand, where are they trying to go and how do they work and how do they think and where are they at? And the cool thing about finding out their accreditations is that means they're probably part of a club or association or some kind of an organization that accredits that. So they might go to those shows. They might go to those meetings and those conferences. Once again, now you're learning more things about what's important to them and what they spend time on. Because the more you know about your prospect, the more likely your prospect is to become a customer. Long time ago, I had a buyer at a company. I'm not going to name the name of the company, but it was a major retailer. You know their brands, if I would say their brands. It's a major retailer. And we were doing a deal, and The next time I walked into the building and I was going to go see some of the engineers and IT people in the organization, they said, Sean, we can't talk to you anymore. And I go, what do you mean you can't talk to me anymore? Well, until we get this deal done, we've been told we can't talk to you. Why is that? I didn't understand that at all. It didn't make any sense to me at all. They were an existing customer. I was trying to get more revenue from them. I was trying to sell more. And they said, well, evidently the buyer is upset because you know more about how we run our company than he does. And he didn't like that because he was at a disadvantage for when we were negotiating, because he would say something. I go, well, that doesn't make any sense because I believe this to be true. And every single time I would catch him on it, and that still worked. And I still got one of the biggest deals of my career, not the biggest deal of my career, but one of the biggest deals of my career when I was selling to him. The more you know about your customer, the more you know about how they work and how they process information and how they make decisions and how they interact with each other and how they interact with their vendors, the more you know, the more likely you are to make them a customer.
Man, there's two things. So the more you know is like the 80s star, on television. It's the more you know, it's like a PBS hour. But the other thing is that, Sean, is somebody's going to go out there and Google my name, and they're going to get the actual results that come up on Google, and they should know categorically that I am not a singer, I have no tattoos, and I'm not the first result that comes up. I don't have an IMDb page. So Kevin Lawson is apparently a renowned singer-songwriter or musician of some sort. So I'm not him. He can't wear the beard like I can. Anyway, fun stuff. But I love the track you're going down here, because we're taking, with a little bit of humor and a story, how sellers, people like us, can be more effective in the marketplace. When we know more, the information is power, right? We're not trying to know more to use it against people. We're trying to know more so that we can be more effective. The best relationships are born out of mutual respect and shared goals and values and all those things. Why not use tools to be more effective at our job? I have been a bad salesperson in my life. Yeah, I paused there intentionally because when I first got into selling, I thought it was all about the relationship. I got to know a lot about the person, but not really what they did. And then I overcorrected and spent a ton of time learning about the product, but not enough about the person. So as you are out there in the market, our listening audience, I want you to avoid this mistake that I made, right? Don't focus solely on just one thing. When you're going out there in your quest for learning to become a more effective seller, use the tools available to get the most information possible, not to beat somebody over the head. Sean, I don't think you were beating that engineer over his head or the buyer over the head. You were learning about their problems so you could try and solve it. Now, it also exposes other people's weakness. He or she didn't know enough about their actual process to negotiate effectively. But that's not the outcome of this discussion. The outcome of this discussion is, when you have an appropriate tool to use, leverage it. It's the surefire money-making machine. It's along the same lines as call the leads, pick up the phone. Don't just use email. Don't single thread things. Don't just call one person. When you find at your ideal client multiple people who are not only your champions, but maybe in other departments that have influence on a deal or have insight on how a deal could be packaged or a solution could be derived that you collaborate on, you co-create a solution for a company, mercy, use that. It's of value to the customer. Regardless of how much more you get to sell, it's of value to the customer, and that's what we're driving for here. So when you're a small team of sellers, or if you're a team of 5 or less, you can consider yourself huge, you can consider yourself small. When you have 5 or less people on your selling team, you owe it to yourself to use tools to compete. If you were a small football team, you would still wear a helmet. You would still wear football pads. You would still wear pads. You would still go to the weight room, because that's how you compete. Regardless of the team size, you still use the tools available to compete. If you're a small team, would you not watch film? Would you not read a scouting report? No, you would absolutely do all those things, because there are tools available to help you be more effective at your job.
And you have to use those tools and be creative at using those tools on a regular basis. And I just wrote a note here that I think we should have Ben from KnowledgeNet. He's the VP of sales over at KnowledgeNet. I think we should have him on a future episode. So I'll be sending him this episode. I'm sure he listens, because every good salesperson should be listening to our podcast. But I'll send this to him and I'll say, hey, Ben, let's get you on. So look for Ben to come on and talk about his product. So KnowledgeNet, great tool. I don't know the VP of sales at Perplexity, so I'm not going to get him on. I just, if I find him, then maybe I'll ask him to be on. Use the things that we've given you. Use the tools that we've discussed, not as recommendations from Kevin and Sean, but as ideas for, gee, I'd like to check that out. And if it doesn't work for you, that's perfectly fine. The whole goal is try to use the tools to be more effective, to be faster, to work smarter and harder, and to become, like Kevin, you said really well, become a generalist. Know a lot about something. Know a little bit about everything, so that you can go into an organization and truly add value. Because as a salesperson, your job is to solve problems for your customers. You're not trying to get a paycheck. You're not trying to get them to buy. You're trying to help them solve a problem. That solution has value, so therefore they have to give up some money in return. But your true goal is to solve a problem and make their life better. Thank you very much. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Check us out next week for Two Tall Guys Talking Sales.
What a great episode, Sean and Kevin. Today I learned so much about the importance of activating your network to build a robust prospect list. By seeking referrals and collaborating with those already connected to your ideal customers, you can create warm introductions that make your outreach feel less like cold calling and more like building relationships. Sean and Kevin explained how using tools like LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, and KnowledgeNet can make this process easier and more effective, especially for smaller sales teams trying to maximize their resources. If there's one significant takeaway from today's episode, it's the actionable idea of leveraging AI tools like Perplexity. By using AI to research a company's structure, key stakeholders, and even professional certifications, you can personalize your approach and stand out in a way that resonates deeply with your prospects. Don't wait. Take 10 minutes to test this strategy on a prospective client today before the hustle of daily business moves it to the back burner. To make it even easier for you, you may remember that Sean challenged you to put Kevin Lawson into Perplexity. We did that for you, and the Kevin Lawson background research link is in the show notes. So make sure you check that out and then learn from how the two tall guys created that Perplexity search. And remember, if you ever need support in sales, sales management, or simply in taking your company to the next level, Sean and Kevin are here to help. You'll find their contact details in the show notes, along with a quick 10-question assessment that lets you gauge your current sales success. So why not give it a try and see where you stand? Until next Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, happy selling!